بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وهو خير ناصر ومعين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Welcome back to Perspectives. We are looking at the Islamic perspective on literature and art. And Mahmoud is the person that I told you about, and I was looking at the internet just trying to get his name. Maybe I had pronounced it wrongly. The person's name is Mahmoud Farshian. Mahmoud Farshian. He's the one who did the miniature or the calligraphy or the art, Persian art in the latest period. Once, like I was saying, that it is unique, but at the same time it's very traditional. You know, it's based upon those principles, which is the principles of the Quran and the principle of haqq and batil, truth and falsehood. Now that's the name I promised to give you before the break. Now, going back onto the discussion or the perspective of art in Islam, we were mentioning that the construction of the buildings and the holy sites, they tend to be up high. For instance, the minarets and all that, trying to point out to that symbolic reflection of man towards the heaven. And as he does that, two things come about. The result of it is that one is he's reflecting to the heaven, the other is how little he is. You know, what's his reality? We had discussed this while speaking about the perspective of man, the spiritual perspective of man in Islam, the perspective of God, the perspective of man, the perspective of universe, which we already have discussed. But this art, as it is the medium, as is the vehicle, the person sees him little in front of his huge sort of space in the church, or the painting of Mary, or the huge sort of the wall, the holy wall, or in the huge temple. So he is little, and that is big, and that is divine, and that is up towards the heaven. Then after that is the space within these construction. The churches, as we said, they are dark, they are grey, they are mysterious, they are a bit sort of like Gothic kind of, you know, trying to reflect that aspect of that religion. But in regards to Islam, you would have light, because Islam tends to talk about Allah being Nur. You know, Allahu Nuru Samawat wal Ard, Allah is light. So you tend to see a lot of light in the Islamic religious places, religious sites. Not only natural light, you know, if you look at the courtyards, where you have the abundance amount of light, and that's spreading through the long halls of the corridors and the halls of the masajid, the aspect of light there. And then at the same time, you would see that within that dome you have these windows where different lights are projecting inside, and these windows are sometimes colored. Then that reflection of different colors, pointing out to the reality of the earth or of the world, where you have where there's diversity, where there's different colors, but as in reality the color of light is one. The color of light is one. So God is one, and his creation is of different color. So that nur that is reflected through that dome, through that window, is one color, but because of that window having different colors, that tend to reflect that color of that light. The other thing that you may have noticed is as we said, that art is the reflection of unity. Then you have the aspect of dome. the dome, the gumbat, right, tends to reflect multiplicity and going towards that unity, that oneness. It goes towards that unity, that one. So from this multiplicity that is the dunya, it becoming one. Arches tend to do the same thing. The arch, you have it's going towards that one point, right? The construction of the cities were like that. The construction of the houses were like that. The houses were made, the door open towards the Qibla, because the ayah of the Quran says you go in the direction of Qibla, you go towards Qibla. The kitchen was made in such a fashion that it faces the Qibla, meaning that the stove, the food that you cook, you take the food from the Qibla. When you have the stove and then you're cooking and you put the food from the Qibla, from the side of the Qibla, Kaaba basically. The amount of light being reflected in the houses. When you go to a masjid, you take your shoes off. When you go to the house, you take your shoes off. So you try to make your house masjid-like. You try to reflect the divinity in your house as well, with the calligraphy inside, with the courtyard, with the pound in the middle, reflecting the purity, which is utilized once again for making wudu. The trees, which is the aspect of the divine nature. The pets that you should have in your house, such as pigeons, such as rooster, such as, all in all, it is a complete reminder. But unfortunately today, we've been deprived of these things. The modern secular culture doesn't like to promote deen, period. Whether that be deen as a Christian deen, whether that be deen as a Hindu deen or Judaic or whatever, because it is purely based on matter, madde, matter. It is not based upon the spirit, upon the divine, upon religious values and principles, but rather it's materialistic. So it tend to snatch away, or it tend to take away that unique, beautiful aspect of the art, which would remind the citizens of God, but now it will remind them of how to be utilitarian, right? How to be utilitarian, how the space should be used as much as you can. Bunk beds, for example. It's just an example. So you're sleeping in that way, it's fun, attractive, but at the same time, unconsciously, you've been affected that you have to take up space. Space is important, it's material, it's madda, so fill that up with the dunya rather than leaving it open. Apartments, one on top of each other, right? Trying to make use of that space in the material sense, because in Islamic understanding, when you have bought a piece of land, when you are living in a place, the atmosphere or the air that is above you, that for example, if you have a house, right, this house is yours, and even the space, the airspace, right, is also yours. Nobody can intervene that. That's why you have in countries, for example, they don't allow you to pass through their airspace, right? They will not allow that unless the government gives that permission, because that air belongs to them. So the same way, when I buy a house, I'm buying not only just that piece of land or house, but at the same time I'm buying that space that is above it, right? But now it has a manavi aspect to it, because I'm going to be connecting to God through this space, right? So now if I have someone on top of me, right, that symbolic value is not there anymore. You know, if I'm in an apartment, you know, that is not there. So therefore, you know, the modern secular art tend to make you utilitarian. Clothing, if you look at it, clothes that we wear, traditionally speaking, previously, if you look at any religion, whether that be religious clothing or non-religious clothing, you would have the aspect of the fall. You know, there's a lot of cloth there, you know, a lot of space there, very holy. You know, these long robes. The Christian priest, if you look at it, you know, the clothes that traditionally people used to wear, they were covering their body and they were long. You know, they were giving that fall. You know, it's like, you know, it's something that has come down from the above, and it has this nice fall to it, right? Jeans, it's a very utilitarian type of cloth, you know, that we wear today. T-shirts and all of these things are, you know, you sleep in that jeans, you work in that jeans, you go to party in that jeans now, you know, you go to funerals in that jeans now. So it's just one clothes. It's very utilitarian rather than different clothes, trying to give importance to the events, to prayers. So therefore, the secular modern culture unfortunately have snatched away the divinity of art, and the purpose is very different for the modern art, for the modern way of construction of the buildings, of the cities. You know, the Islamic cities or the religious cities were constructed in a very different way. You know, you have the wall of the city and you have the door, huge door, you know. So, you know, the aspect of entering the city through a door. Ana Madinatul Ilm, it's a Medina. Wa Aliyun Babuha, and Ali is the Bab, Ali is the door. So if you are entering a city, you have to enter through a door. But today when you enter a city, you can enter it from the south, you can enter it from the north, you can enter it from the east, you can enter it from thousands of ways to really enter the city. It snatches away the holiness of that place. It snatches away, you know, then it becomes, oh, you can enter it from anywhere. You can enter your house from the window, you can enter your house from the door, you can enter your house from the chimney. You know, that nazm, that order is not there anymore. So now obviously, I mean, these things affect your soul, brothers and sisters. You know, it impacts your soul, right? When I'm entering the city, sometimes I'm entering from this door, sometimes I'm from this motorway, sometimes I'm entering from there. But previously, no. You know, even if there were different entrances, there was a door to enter it, trying to point out to the principle of holiness, that is the Behesht, that is the hereafter, the Jannah. They are doors, and you enter the paradise through these doors. The reflection of the divine on earth. The cities are reflecting the divine, the Behesht, the hereafter on earth. And when it is reflecting that, it is reminding the citizens of the hereafter. You know, you would tend to find on the door to enter the city a dua, for example, a supplication. When you leave the city, a dua, for example. Allahumma adkhilni mudkhala sidq wa akhrijni mukhraja sidq waj'alni min ladunka sultanan nasira. Bismillah wa billah fi sabilillah wa ala millati rasulillah, for example. You know, these are the duas that I'm pretty sure you have read these duas to enter the harams, for example. It is usually on top of the door, right? mannerism. It teaches you akhlaq. The door was huge, and at night you close the door, right? So that means you keep out of any wilderness, any beast or anything, by closing the door at night. Night is a place of rest. Night is a place where, you protect yourself, you protect your city. So same way as an individual, night is a place that you close everything, from the transactions, from the wilderness, from the beast, right? So all of these things have great amount of effect on the soul of a person. So now the door, huge, but at the same time is used to have a small door. That door will open, the person enters that by bending his head, and he enters it. Particularly in religious sites, in the haram, and it used to be like that. That if the door is closed, they will open that small door, and that person have to be humble. He will become humble, he will bow down, and then he will enter. Once again, pointing out to that element of humility, that the man have to show his humility symbolically if he is entering the religious site, or if he is entering the city out of hours, for example. It's a muzahim. That person who is entering is a nuisance. Now, as he's a nuisance, he better know that it is a nuisance, and he has to humble himself. If the city door is open, he's going to enter it with arrogance, for example, without realizing that this is not the time to enter the city and disturb the citizens of the city. So when you are entering the city, you are lowering yourself. You are embarrassed that you are entering at this hour when the door is closed. The door of the madrasa, for example. We remember we used to have this, the big madrasa, and there used to be small door. That small door will open, and then you enter it with quietly, and you feel something inside that, oh man, the door is closed now, I have to be humble. Now if there be a person who is arrogant, now the door is, for example, if the door is closed, he comes, he says, oh, what is this, the door closed, and this, and complains and all. But when he's acting, he has to humble himself. So this physical act perhaps will have some effect on his heart, and will make him humble, and will make him realize that what you have done is not right. You have entered the madrasa at a wrong time. As you have entered the madrasa at a wrong time, you have disturbed other people, other individuals. So you better lower your guard, you see, your gear. So now, this is how this construction of the cities were, reflecting that divine, that divinity, trying to promote akhlaq. Now, when you look at the colors, for example, very symbolic. The construction of trying to portray the light coming from the heaven. You have seen this sort of like doors. They tend to have, layers of calligraphic tiles, blue colors and different sort of flowery colors. They tend to be on different levels. Trying to reflect that is trying to point out that the light is coming from the heaven. It's like steps, and then it covers like that. It goes to that one sort of like arch. So when a person obviously have that understanding that what this art is doing, then it will have a greater effect upon his soul. And if he is unaware and he doesn't have the understanding, automatically he will be affected unconsciously. his conscious will be affected by the atmosphere that he's there. When he attends there, when he goes there, when he just sits in this peaceful, blissful place, which have all these different art and architecture around him, it will make his soul at ease and peace. There will be some sort of tranquility in his heart, and this tranquility and peace in his heart will ask him to stay there longer in that holy place, and at the same time will push him to visit again. You know, he wants to go there again. He wants to sit in the same place. He wants to reflect on the same, you know, things that are around him. This sort of peaceful atmosphere will allow him to reflect, to think, to connect. It's promoting that. Then, for example, if you look at the Persian rugs, you know, once again, it tends to reflect that divinity, pointing out to that different colors, the center of the Persian rug, you know, all of these activities around that center, reflection of Tawheed. Now he uses the same rugs in his house. It is there, but it is affecting him. And what I'm saying is that, nothing foreign. I mean, even the modern psychologists, they use these tactics. They use these methods. They say that yes, if you have an ad word, you know, it's there when you know, for example, when you go on a computer and you're working on it, there's a lot of ad words around that you don't even pay attention to. You know, sometimes you may look, sometimes you don't really care, you know, right? So it's there, but you're reading the news, but all of these things are there. It's affecting your conscious, just by being there. So what I'm not speaking about is not that it is something that is foreign. I mean, it is something that is there. The same way the carpets, they might be in the house. You know, I might be watching a television, but it's right there at the floor. It affects that message of Tawheed, the purpose of it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other things that kind of makes that effect stronger, which perhaps we'll look at it in our next program. In perspective, we are looking at the perspective of Islamic art and architecture, and inshallah we'll continue on the same topic for another program, because we haven't really touched the literature, and we'll move on from there. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you next week again. Goodbye.